once I switched from Reason to Ableton 10 years ago, however long ago it was, I never look back. Especially for DJs, I find Ableton's workflow to be so much more facilitating of the way we operate. Especially for like remixes and mixtapes and all the stuff that Richard's been doing with us in workshops. So the hardest thing for me about Ableton when I first cracked the whip and sat down literally with this Akai keyboard and everything else, I was like, I want to try it, was the reality that there was no set workflow. Do this, do this, do this, do this. Then I started like jumping, like, okay, so I guess I'm supposed to do this. No, I'm supposed to do this. Which one is right? And I mean, Richard has done a really good job over the past 2, 3, 4 sessions, thus being like, yeah, there is no right. Ableton's coolest thing is you just do what you want to do, buddy. You want to loop, Apple and L, sure, Control and L, or you want also loop, copy and paste the damn clip 6 times. That's a loop. Like nobody's saying to you, you have to loop this way. You dig? And that is what the scary part about it, at least for me, was. Like, I know getting through it. I remember the first time, Richard, I tried to use, I forget the name of the drum kit. I actually think it's drum kit. So, you know, like you pull the 808 out and the drum kit preloads everything with all the 808 samples. And like I built out the whole thing, I had the whole MIDI thing going and it's dope. But then I was like, yeah, but I just want to put some compression on this snare. I didn't realize that I literally could just drop a snare into a MIDI and then because of that, I could also transpose the whole snare up and down. I was like, wait, you could do all that? Ableton is sickening. Like it is sickening. It's really, really cool. So like now when I'm doing a drum pattern, I actually do it each instrument that I would like, kick, snare, cymbal, hi-hat, whatever. I actually drop him as like a whole channel so that I could do whatever compression, effecting, destructing things I want to do, which I find to be so energizing. It's like, oh, I can make this. I could take one snare in Ableton, a stock snare that they have as a sample, Richard, and I could use that snare 10 times in 10 different tracks, and each time just on compression and stuff, make the snare sound totally different.
Yeah.
Can't do them things just so in the Logics and the Pro Tools and the rest. It's really sick.
Well, you're probably speaking about you use drum rack, right?
Yeah, drum rack. Thank you.
Okay.
Drum rack.
So drum rack is basically, it's supposed to mimic what a drum machine does, right? But the thing is that in live, you could expand all those tracks individually and put things on them, right? And drum rack just puts things in a way that all the tracks themselves are not, let's say, separate. So it just outputs directly to the master. It goes to the drum rack group. So it's like you have 128 samples readily available to come through one group.
Insane.
And then each one, well, it's not tracks, they call them in drum racks, they call them chains. So you could have a snare chain, you could have a kick chain, and then you could extract those chains into separate tracks now and do whatever the hell you want.
The scariest thing about Ableton for me is the reality that, but wait, I have 16 different ways to deal with a snare and a kick.
Yeah.
Which one is
like,
mine?
Yeah, because like every class, every new student I have, I always tell them this. I say, in live, you can do one thing more than one way.
Right.
So if you want to warp something, as people are going to see today, you don't have to do it just one way. There's no right way. There are several right ways. So even to like stop the set, you don't have to press stop. You could press the space bar. If you want to loop something, there are different ways that you could loop them. And because the software is so versatile, sometimes it's a bit intimidating for some people because a person might, normal thing, you go on YouTube and they say, okay, let me see how to loop this thing. And they'll find one way. And then they say, okay, let me check another one. And then somebody else has another way. And they're like,
and you like, wait. What to do?
like what to do? And the thing is that you could do any one of them. And they will all work.
Where am I supposed to put my foot? I don't want to twist my ankle. Where am I supposed to put my foot?
Yeah.
So this morning's session is the third Ableton session specific to Ableton. I know we did like a pre-session, which technically makes it the fourth. And today, Richard is going to be jumping, apparently, deep into warping with Ableton. So it's going to be fun. We've already eaten 20 minutes. I shall say no more. Sina, keep your eyes on the road. Do like Melissa, who's not looking at it. She looked. All right, so that's it. I give up. Simo, please don't drive them into a ditch. Everybody have a good one.
Thank you very much, Carbon. Good morning to everyone. Sina is in Grenada, right? Yeah, all right, cool. And this man is always driving. Good morning to you, Sina. Hope that you'll be safe, right? All right. Also, good morning to Melissa, who I see is also driving. Good morning. Hope you're having a really good day and that everyone is going to enjoy today's session. So today is our number 3 workshop, or workshop number 3 in Ableton Live. I am your co-host, Richard Balgobin. I'm also known as DiiSiimo. I'm an Ableton certified trainer, and I have been certified since the year 2013. And since then, I've been able to have the pleasure to teach a lot of different people at different skill levels, different countries, and basically get a good idea as to what issues people have, or start people from the ground up, as for people who don't know anything about Ableton Live, and especially for people who haven't been to any of these workshops before. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today we're going to speak about something that will literally meet you at the door, whether you like it or not, whenever you have to use Ableton Live. And yes, you can use Ableton Live without this skill in some way or the other up to a certain point, but at one point or the other, you're going to have to meet it. And it's called warping. It's also known as, in other software, as time stretching. So yeah, it's basically setting a tempo for a sound. Now, note I didn't say song, because we don't only warp songs, we also have sounds. So instead of a song, we can warp a loop, or find the tempo of a loop, or how fast it is, or what BPM it is. And also, let's say like a sound effect or a scratch effect. It could be anything, but we could warp it. And by warping a sound, it allows us the ability, the main thing, to stretch time or set the time. So if we have a loop that is 100 BPM, we can say, all right, well, we could set this to 100 BPM, or we could set it to another tempo if we want. And having set that in the software as 100 BPM, we can stretch it so that it could go slower if we wanted to go 90 BPM, 80, 70, 60, 50, I think down to 20 BPM the software goes, up to 999 BPM. It does this by using a very good algorithm to control the pitch of the sound. And when I say pitch of the sound, like you have a pitch slider on your mixer, some may call it tempo. Basically, you can change the speed of the sound without changing the pitch or the tone of the sound. You could also change it if you want, but that's the whole reason for warping, is that you could change the tempo without changing the speed of the sound. So like Serato, they will be able to do this natively. So you could just say, okay, key lock, and you could speed up things, slow them down, and they would not change in pitch, or would not change the note. That's basically what warping is. Workshop didn't finish though, don't worry. The warping now that we want to speak about, it can take several different forms. And if you were privy to the ramblings that myself and Carbon had a little earlier, is that there are different ways to do it. And some people get very intimidated by this. I even had a person message me a couple days this week and saying, okay, listen, I'm really good with Logic, and Ableton just scares me. It looks like something that a flight controller would use. Or somebody else told me that it seems like it's a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. I don't know what to do. The thing is that I get that. I understand, because it appeared the same way to me as well many years ago. I will be honest. I didn't just pick up Ableton Live and just start using it like that. I had to pick it up, say, no, this is too much, and put it down. Then I picked it up a second time. I was like, no, this is not happening. Picked it up a third time. I was like, I can't get this. And then I picked it up another time, and I'm like, listen, I'm seeing all these European DJs out there putting up these YouTube videos, and they're using live on stage and just making amazing music, as well as using already existing audio on stage, speeding it up, slowing it down, having little or no artifacts in it, or let's say weird digital glitchy sounds. And I was like, but if they could find a way to do it, how come I can't do this? And then I just went in surgically and tried to think how they would think. Because just in Trinidad or the Caribbean or many other parts of the world, well, I started as a DJ. So I started DJing all the way in 1995. And you just had to put in a CD or a record in those days and start playing. And then Serato came around some years later. And I was like, okay, yeah, this sounds good. But then to think with the Serato head and then to jump into an actual audio editor's head, it was tough. So then I had to rethink my approach and say, okay, listen, this is a waveform, this is an audio file. It goes from left to right, and there's a whole heap of music and beats and singing and stuff in the middle. So let's try to find this thing to make it work. So the reason that I even picked up Ableton Live on the whole is because I was doing live performance samples with Kesty Band, and I had to change tempos like almost every performance, because one week they'd say, okay, could you speed it up 2 BPMs? And I'll be like, okay. But to do that in those days, I was using Cool Edit Pro. And this is even before it went to Adobe Audition as it exists now. So I was using Cool Edit Pro, say, okay, let me try and speed this thing up or whatever, or slow it down as the case would be, and then run it back into a hardware sampler, and it'll be just madness to try and get it done in time. I asked a friend and he recommended Ableton Live. And that's why I picked it up and threw it down 3 times. And then on the fourth time, I was like, yes, I'm getting through. So I was able now to use software on stage to speed things up, slow things down with little or no prep work. I could just something once and have that in my live set for live performance. And then I'd be able to say, you want this thing sped up by 2? And they'll be like, wait, how you do that so fast? And used to tell me I needed a half hour. And be like, no, those days hopefully are done. So that's how I got into the whole Ableton Live game and warping game. And then eventually I said, okay, I think I'm good at this. I want to take a shot at becoming a certified trainer. And that's a whole other story. But when I got the hang of warping and doing things like this in Ableton Live, I was able to say, okay, I could use minimal skills in live, just use like the basic functions in Ableton Live and be able to wreak havoc on audio. So what I'm going to show you today is going to allow you, or at least point in the right direction, to wreak havoc in your own way. These are definitely things that I cover in my private sessions, but I found it really useful to be able to share this with you because, I mean, all of my students come to me and more than likely, they usually don't know how to warp, or they don't know how to warp effectively, or know different ways to warp. And if you only know one way, then when another piece of audio hits you, you may get confused or you may not know where to start. So hopefully this would be able to show you and point in the right direction. Yes, it may seem intimidating to people when looking at it at first, but really and truly, it doesn't have to be that way. And hopefully from what I'm going to share today is going to blow all those things away. So let me share my screen with you. This is Ableton Live. Let's check some audio. Let's make sure that we can hear what's going on. Okay, great. Ableton Live opens up like, let's see, and when you open Ableton Live 10, it may open looking something like this. It will open with 2 MIDI tracks, 2 audio tracks, and this browser section may be open. So this is where you could get all your sounds, all your instruments, your audio effects, your plugins, stuff from folders. So this is the browser section. This is where we're going to be getting all our material from. This is what we call the session view, which is usually used by people for running live performances. But for what we're going to do today, we're not going to spend too much time inside the session view. I'm just going to use it as an example of how to approach things, which is more or less the same. And we'll get to see that as the class goes along. So for our purposes today, we're not going to use the MIDI tracks. I'll just get rid of these by clicking on the title of the track and just press delete twice because there are 2 MIDI clips. We're not going to be using MIDI today. And let's see, we are going to be using the arrangement view, which on either PC or Mac is accessed by clicking on the tab key on your keyboard. So this is the familiar side of the linear view of Ableton Live, again called the arrangement view, where everything is, as I said, linear. So it goes from left to right, or for you, left to right. I'm not sure how you're seeing it. The linear view of Ableton Live. So now I have different folders that I've assigned inside the software that I can access different folders on my hard drive. Now, this could be folders from an external hard drive as well, or local hard drives. So everything that I need for now is on my local hard drive. So I actually assigned a folder in Ableton Live called Songs. And you could assign those things just by clicking this add folder link, and it will ask you which folder to add. And when you add it, it will just come up along with this list of folders in the places section. So what we want to do is we want to start warping some songs. First, well, before we get into warping, we have to check our warp preferences. So preferences can be accessed by going to live and preferences, or we could use the control and comma or command and comma. And I will also share this screen a little better with you. So this should come up big on your screen and big and nice. All right. So by default, mine comes up with audio. I need to go to the record warp launch tab, which is located here. I just click on it. And as it says, it shows us record, warp, and launch preferences that we can set. Under the warp and fades section, we have a couple of different things that we can set. So it asks here if you want to loop or warp short samples. So a short samples could be like a loop from a sample pack. It could be a sound effect, a pew, 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 or anything like that. It could be anything that is short, a couple of seconds long, nothing too long like a song or something like that, right? So in this here, I have left it at auto. So this is something that is recommended because we don't know what type of short sample we're going to bring in. So if it's a pew, we may not need to warp that. It could just be imported into the software as is. Or if live figures that, okay, it may be beneficial to warp this thing, it will warp it. It may not warp it to the same speed or time. It will maintain the pitch or the note, but it may either shrink it a little bit or stretch it a little bit. And that's fine because you can always adjust it as we're going to see as we progress with this class. So there are a couple options. We can choose unwarped one shot, which means that, as I just mentioned, you could just bring it into the software as is, it's not warped and it just plays once. And we have warped one shot, which means that it will warp the clip or set a tempo for it and just let it allow to be played. Warped loop means that it's going to warp the song or the sample to whatever timing it detects and is going to set it to loop. And auto means I could choose any one of those three. To make things easier, you just set it to auto and leave it like that. It will do its thing and it works in most instances. Now, auto warp long samples. This is an interesting guy. It's either on and off or off. So if you set it to on, that means that if I import a song into live, it's going to automatically warp it, which may not be the best idea because let's say you have a song that starts with a vocal alone or an instrument that doesn't have a really good or detectable beat signature, then it may set an incorrect warp setting or tempo. So I always kind of leave this at off, especially if I'm doing stem work, because sometimes people want me to work with stems or do a remix, do a fancy edit for a radio commercial. So I usually set this to off so that I can set my warp manually inside the software itself and not have Ableton do the thinking for me where this is concerned. Default warp mode. Ableton Live has 5/6 different warp modes, which do its own thing. So to explain that quickly, Beats warp mode is for songs that have very strong like percussion or beat signatures in it. So it has a nice heavy kick drum, a nice heavy snare, or anything that is percussion based. It will be able to read those transients and preserve them accordingly so that you don't hear any artifacts when you slow it down or speed it up. Tones is for anything melodic like keyboards and stuff like that. It interprets the sound like that. And texture, it's for like noises. So ambient sounds, buzzy sounds, it tries to preserve that texture and keeps it warm. Repitch is very cool because, yeah, you could speed things up, slow them down, warping, but it will preserve that. It will not preserve the pitch then. It will make it sound as though it's a record. So if you have a record and you speed it up or slow it down, like, yes, some people don't know what records feel or look like. If you put a record on a turntable and you speed it up, yes, the pitch and the note will actually increase. If you slow it down, the pitch will decrease and it'll sound row, 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 or whatever. Sorry for the bad sound effects. But it will not be lossy, which means that it will preserve the integrity of the recording. Repitch is, let's say, lossless, but you could speed things up, slow them down, and make it be like a turntable that you're using. Complex can also be divided into Complex Pro, where complex takes into account complex sounds. So if you have an entire song, which is full range, as in frequency, so you have from low frequencies to high frequencies. So you have drum kicks, you have singing, you have hi-hats, percussion sounds, you have singing, you have melodic content, chords, everything in the middle. It will take into account everything and try to warp those things accordingly. That's what all of these warp modes are created to interpret the different types of audio that you'd use. However, sometimes some of these will work better in other areas. So it's not to say that all complex audio or all songs you should use complex or complex pro. It doesn't mean that. You can use this and say, okay, let's try tones or let's try beats, but they all have their advantages. So beats would make sure that the transients of like kicks and snares and anything that is short or staccato, that they make sure that they preserve that so it comes out nice and hard. Whereas complex, it may kind of polish off or round out the sounds a little bit, so it may not be as sharp then. So if you want to get like a sharper sound, you can use beats. If you're using like keyboard sounds or vocals and stuff like that, you could use complex and it will work fine. So I'll set my stuff to beats. And fades, create fades on clip edges. This is something useful to keep on. It creates a very short little fade at the start and the end of your clips or loops or samples so that you don't hear clipping when it moves from one into the other. Or let's say if a clip starts or stops, you could actually hear a little sound or a little click or a little artifact or something like that that comes up and it doesn't sound good. These are the settings that you probably could start with, and then you can evolve as you go along. Okay, so let's do some warping. I have created a folder here called workshop number 3 samples, and I'll click on the little arrow here, which shows me all the contents of that folder. And I have a couple things that I could use. If I click on one of these things, it will actually show a preview here. Let's import something. I can go through this list here in this folder called songs, and I could say, okay, let me just find a song that starts on the 1. I could just click and drag it into the software, into one of these tracks. So just like a mixer, you have different channels. In Ableton Live, they are called tracks. If I have this little headphone icon highlighted, that means that I'm allowed to listen to a preview of that sample. So if I click here, and I click somewhere else, it'll be able to preview it. And once I select something else or click out of that preview area, it will stop. So I can click here. May your heart find peace anywhere. And that's how you preview a song. If you don't want it to preview, you could just take this off. May your heart find peace. We have Freetown Collective and Private Ryan Feely Love DJ Matrix Edit. Is that any one of you guys? Maybe. Let's say if I want to warp this. This is pretty straightforward, kind of. Or if warping is new to you, let's show you a whole new world. I want to be able to zoom into this thing. Or I need to be able to see what's going on in this clip. So I could just double click on the title of this clip and it exposes it in what we call the sample editor. I can use the cursor, which is now represented by a magnifying glass, and I could move to the front of that sample and just click and pull down or drag down, and I'm able to zoom nice and tight to where the start of this sound is. I can move the cursor now above this area where it is where it's showing me that it's a magnifying glass, and right above that, I can move this marker here, which is called the start marker, and drag it to where the start of this sound is, like somewhere around there. If I play it back, right, I'll be able to say, okay, this starts exactly at the start point. If I set it somewhere in here, I'm missing that nice snap. So I could say, okay, the snap comes like right here. So I can hear what's going on. And I'm hearing the full sound. That's the first thing. Here's another trick that we could do. if I'm finding it too hard to say, okay, I need to go and find this tiny little triangle and drag it across here, I could just move the cursor right above the area that I want to set the start marker at. It will still seem as though it's magnifying glass, but if I hold on the command or control key, it now turns into a nice triangle. And if I click there, it will now automatically set it to that region there. And I could now click and drag it around and say, okay, that's it right there. So that's a really quick way to find the start marker of something. Not to be rude, but knowing this now, let's Dashway Freeter, right? We're done with you. We are going to use one of these guys, the Black Eyed Peas. So check this out. You're seeing that that playhead is just running down there. That's because that's the amount of space that there is in this file. So whoever exported this file, I don't know. They need to take a warping class. So let's bring that into our project. And there we go. So now we see that there's this whole heap of space here that we really don't need to see. To set a warp marker or a start marker is I hold on the command or control key, because let's say if I zoom in here and I'm like, okay, I don't want to have to go here and click here. Again, it's just an option. There are more ways to do everything in Ableton Live than one. So I just move here, boop. And I just say, right, click, it's around the area. I could zoom in and say, right, let me zoom in a little tighter now. There we go. And it's always good to make sure that your start marker is set at what you call 0 crossings, which means that the waveform is not quite up here. Because you could also get clicks and pops and stuff that you really don't want to get in your audio. It's just something else that you need to worry about. So you always go to where it's at the center point, or what you call 0 crossings. So if I zoom out a little bit, I'm hearing that starts at the exact point. Let's go and just click on this button here that says warp. Ta-da! It's warped. Job done. Right? No, it's not done. I'll just scroll back to the front here and be like, ooh, is it warped really? I'm not sure. Let's check. Now this just says, okay, warp this song based on what the project tempo is. The project tempo is found in the top left-hand corner here, right here. Right, so right now I've set mine to open at 100 BPM. So this just warped this song under this segment BPM section here as 100 BPM. And by default, it's using the beats mode. If I click on this dropdown, I will find all the other modes here. So I could select tones if I want. I could select texture just by pressing my down arrow, so I don't have to click and open again because it's already selected. I could select Pro or just scroll all the way back up to beats and say, okay, this is a beat heavy song, so I'm going to leave it on beats for now, unless something sounds weird in it, and I could choose another warp algorithm later on if I want. To check if this has been warped to the tempo of the project, it says 100 BPM. And to find out if that is the correct tempo of this sample, I need to just zoom out a little bit until I could see on this beat time ruler about three, at least 2 bars of audio. So this here is 1, as in bar 1, beat 1. This one is bar 1, beat 2, bar 1, beat 3, beat 4, the start of bar 2, beat 2, and so on. So I want to make sure that my sample hits bar 2 correctly, which means that the start of bar 2 is supposed to have the appropriate sample. First of all, let's check the tempo of this sample. So this is one way to do it, right? You can click on these, let's say, open and closed circles, which is the metronome. If I set it on and I play back this sound or play back the set, the metronome will beat in time with the project tempo. So it's going to beat in time with 100 BPMs. And then we will hear by the sample if it's slower than 100 BPMs or faster. So let's listen. Whoa, that is way off. So it sounds like this sample is way faster than 100 BPM. Here's how you fix this. We need to look at this sample here and try to figure out where the start of bar 2, where that transient is. So if we play it back, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom. So that means that this sample here, this sample is supposed to be hitting this bar 2 line here. Right? So this here is supposed to be here. So to fix that is that we keep our eyes here. We need to click on this warp marker. When we click on that warp marker, I'm able to click in here and speed it up, slow it down, or set a higher tempo or a slower tempo. If I don't have it selected and I try to click here and I hit up or down, it's not going to work. So it's very important to click on the warp marker. And now I could click in this region and go up and just keep going up, 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 up. Seems like bar 2 could be in the right region there. So if we play it back and maintaining the metronome being on, so now the sample or song is playing back at the project tempo, and it's also in time with the metronome, which means that this sample is 126 BPM. So to make sure that that is correct, we could just go down to, let's say, the start of bar 9 and see it looks like it's just about on. Let's say bar 23. Right. So this sample actually has a tempo change apparently. What we need to do to make sure that we know what we're hearing is that we have to adjust this project tempo to 126 BPM. So let's play it back. Right. So this has a tempo change. Only the start of this here is at 126 BPM. But down here, it's a different tempo. Before we get deep and heavy into that now, let's just understand that we've just warped this, at least the initial part. So this region here is 126 BPM. And that is how you warp. Right? If I take this metronome off, so that we don't get distracted, we play it back. I could change the project tempo now. It speeds up and slow down. But the thing is that when you slow down in beats mode, you'll get artifacts. What we could do is set this to complex or complex pro, and we'll get a little improvement in that sound. All right. When you're using beats mode, it sounds pretty good if you have to speed up a song higher than its original tempo. But if you have to slow it down lower than its original tempo, it starts to give some weird artifacts. If you have to speed up, you could use beats mode. If you have to slow down, you could use complex. And that's just some tips that you could get there when you're warping and how to choose which warp mode for what. Any questions so far? I'm not seeing anything. Hopefully everything is clear. Before we get into the wildness of that slower and faster stuff like that, I'm just going to deactivate this and we're going to go on and warp another sample. So let's choose this one. So I just brought it into a separate audio track. Now let's just say if I pull it in and I let it go right here. Because it's selected, I could use my left or right arrow keys and just move it into place. Or I could click and hold on that audio clip and just send it to the start. So now because it's selected, I have it selected in my sample editor. I could zoom in a little bit. So check this out. I have a start marker that is at the start of the sample, but I'm zooming in over here because of how tight I want to zoom in. No problem. I could hold on the Command or Control key above this region here. And that's where I want to set my start marker. If I leave it here, I could tell that this is the start of, let's say, the first bar then. So I could just set it right here, move it into place. Say, okay, right about there should be good. Cool. So I've now set my start marker. So remember the steps, right? Set your start marker. And of course, there are different ways to do this. So this is just one way. I could click on warp. Make sure I'm seeing the start here. Zoom in so I could see what should be around the first bar or 2 bars of audio. And then try to figure out where the second bar is supposed to start. So this should be the start of the second bar. I'm going to click on the warp marker. Then I'm going to click on the segment BPM and bring it down. So it's somewhere around here. I could zoom in and say, okay, it's somewhere around here, right? So, okay, let's try this. Let's set the metronome on. And let's say if I put this as 109. So if I put the project tempo at 109, right. So it starts to wiggle off here now. So 2 things. It could be that the song itself was programmed at another tempo or something like that, or it went off, or maybe my start marker is not in the correct place. It's very simple to fix. I could just take the, or at least let me look at where the start of, let's say, bar 3 is. So it starts coming in a little early. I could do one of 2 things. I could use this transient marker and just drag this here and set it on. But then it would show me that this here is close to like 110. So to avoid all of this now, I could just take the warping off and say, okay, let me set this here, project tempo 110. And I could now zoom in here and say, okay, let me just pull it in like right about here. If I click warp at 110, bar 3 goes back a little bit. You can fix this one of 2 ways. Again, you could take the warp off and say, okay, let's bring it in a little bit here, somewhere around there. Warp. And now if we go to bar 2, seems like it's a little bit off there again. And if we play it back with the metronome, you'll hear how it goes. So it's slightly off still. I could say, all right, let's bring it in a little bit. Warp. So let's say around here is just a little bit off. If you realize that, okay, listen, I can't set this start marker at the exact place that is going to be in time all the way down, I could do several things. One is that I'm hearing that it's consistently beating along with the metronome, but it's a little way off. So that means that my start marker is a little bit off. But here's what you could do. One thing is we can use the context menu. Or before we do that, let's say at the start of bar 3, I could just click in this region here and set a warp marker or create a warp marker and drag it to bar 3. And listen to that. Right? So that sounds okay. So let's go to like bar 9 and see if it's on or not. It says okay, it should probably be like right here. So I could set a warp marker and pull it into place. Right? If I play back this region, I could use the cursor and put it in what we call the scrub area. So it will play from this point. Right, cool. Sounds good. So I could continue doing this for the whole thing, or I don't need to. I can use the context menu and right click on this warp marker and say, okay, up to that point, I'm going good so far. I could right click on the warp marker, the last one, and I could select one of these options here. It says warp from here, start at 110, straight, 110 from here, 128 bar loop, no problem. Okay. If I select warp from here, it will automatically warp it how it sees fit. So let's say if I go to bar 19, it's pretty good there. If I go to, let's say, bar 25, it looks like it's on. It looks like warp from here did a good job. So let's listen. So Ableton Live has correctly figured out that this should be, well, what tempo this should be there. So we have a general ballpark of 110. So we could now speed this up or slow it down as we want. So they're making their own section. Yes, Backyard Jam is a live band song, so they would have a live drummer, but who do you do this with? Red Boys? Not sure, could be. Yes, they would have a drummer beating, but they would be beating towards a click, right? So that's why things may slide a little off and on, but they'll hit a metronome because they know that DJs have to play it. So they would have to be locked to some timing or anything like that. That could probably be it exactly, right? This is a really nice, quick way of trying to figure out what the tempo is. Ableton Live, I've set a couple of warp markers, even if you set one. If I just had one here and I right click and I say, okay, let me take these two off, right? So now let's hear. Someone who will keep the order to give house rules and safety tips. So we must have a whiner, hard girl to show off she bumper. Right, so it's a little off there. I could right click here and say, okay, warp from here. Or if I realized that didn't work as well, I could just drag the swap marker and create one and say, right. So that's pretty much on. Or if it's not on enough for you, you could just click and right click and say, warp from here. But I think it'll maintain what it originally did. And that's it. Now this is actually a harder song to warp because because it was probably recorded as a live band song. But they would have locked in with a metronome. So if the drummer was playing, he would have played to a metronome, or at least that straight click. So that's it for Farm and Happy. So let's select something else, right? Let's select a song that does not start with a beat, just like this one, but a little different. So to import that, I just click, drag, and pull it into where it says drop files and devices here. There we go. So let's deactivate this track now so that we could only hear this Benny or however you pronounce her name. So I can't tell what warp signature this is yet, because I mean, it doesn't start with a clear-cut waveform, but then it goes into this.
I know I fucked up, I'm just a loser.
Vocals.
Shouldn't be with ya. Guess I'm a quitter while you're out there drinking. I'm just thinking about where I should have been. I've been lonely, yeah. Water pouring down from the ceiling. I knew this would happen, still hard to believe it.
Okay, let's zoom in a little bit and try to figure out where this first bar comes in. Or it doesn't even need to be the first bar because she started singing already. She started singing the chorus already. And then she went into the verse and that's where the beat came in. So that's no problem. You do not have to start at the verse or chorus or wherever. You could set your start marker at the point where there's a strong beat signature or a really prominent transient. So a transient is a peak in audio, right? So all of these are peaks in audio. I want to zoom in here. And as usual, I move the cursor to this region right around where I believe my start marker should be. Hold on Command or Control. I see that triangle comes up. Click, boom. My start marker has been assigned. So this looks pretty good. I could leave it right here. So let's listen. Right, so let's try to figure out where the start of the second or third bar goes. Now, this is an interesting way of warping. I'll count along with the song and you could tell which or decide which way you'd like to go. I'll check beats, let's say double time. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that means this should be the start of the third bar. Or some people might go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? So however you choose to do it, that's up to you. But you can say that somewhere around here is the start of the second bar, over here is the start of the second bar. No worries. Let us determine what's going on. So we click on warp again. It sets the warp. I just scroll to find where this thing goes. Let's play it back. Okay, I'll say that is double time. So I will want this region here to start bar 3. So let's play back one more time to figure out where we're at. Right, so I want this region to be at the start of bar 3. Click to make sure that the warp marker is selected. Click any segment BPM. Send it up a little bit. 130. I could set my project tempo at 130 so things don't sound weird. Put on my metronome. Let's play it back. Pouring down from the ceiling. I knew this would happen. So hard to believe it. Maybe I'm dramatic. I don't wanna see me. I don't wanna panic. Right. Sounds pretty much on to me. Right? Hope it sounds good for you as well. All right, and that's cool. So it says that this is 130 BPM. Or some people would have put the second bar to start, or they would have used the bar 3 as bar 2. So that means it would have been half this tempo, right? So let's just say if I did that, I could take this warp off and put the warp back on. The project tempo is 130 BPM, but I could say, okay, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So this could be the start of bar 2 here. I could say, right, this should be all the way up here. So I could click now and say, okay, this should be way slower, all the way down. All right. And if I play it back now, it will sound like the, well, not the chipmunks, but it'll play very fast. That's a cool vibe. But let's set it to 65 BPM. Pouring down from the ceiling. I knew this would happen. So hard to believe it. So it's your choice. You can choose whether to say, okay, it's really half the time or it's double time. And you could change that by the click of one button inside the warp region here. So let's say if I wanted to set this sample at 130, right? I could just double this here, which means multiply by 2. So that means I've multiplied this clip's tempo by 2. So now it's 130 BPM. So if I click and I say, okay, 130 BPM is the project tempo, and I play it back. Sounds great. I can also halve this time by clicking on this here, like the kind of colon 2 figure. So if I click on that now, I'll go back to 65 BPM. And I set it as 65 for the project tempo and I play it back. So it's your choice what you want to set your tempo for any clip that you have as. Sometimes you want to set it as twice or halve it. It's all up to you. Once you set the proper start marker and you have it warped properly, it will sound great either way, depending on what your creative process might be. So I will say that I want to set this to 130 and make it double time. Right. So you'll also see that sometimes the waveform scrolls along as it plays like this. And this white line here is called the playhead. So this is where whatever you hear, that shows you what is being played right now. To start or stop this from happening, if you wanted to just play back and not have the thing scroll across and let the playhead just go along, you can click on this here, which is the follow button, and take it off. So I will continue off the screen. So at least you could still see what's going on here, right? If you wanted to keep scrolling, you could just hit that play button or follow button. And that is how you set the warping for this type of file. Any questions so far? Let me see. As usual, if you want, you could send your messages or questions in the chat. And every couple of minutes, I'll try my best to read them and answer your questions. This is to get all your questions answered. And if I'm doing that anyway, well, great, thanks. Here's another thing now. The song doesn't start from this point. If I click and zoom out, I still want to get all this audio played. So let's say if I want to create a DJ set or do a mixtape or a remix or something, I could just now move this start marker all the way back. All right, so let's say if I play it back from here.
I'm just a loser, shouldn't be with ya.
So that's what it is about warping. Warping, no matter if you warp near to the end of a song, it doesn't matter. It warps both after the warp marker and before. So there's no need to fear saying, oh, I only have part of the track warped. No, that's okay. It warps the entire thing. So if I want to hear this whole thing, I could go back to -bar 16 and Cool. Let's try warping something else. Let's try warping something that was not created, more than likely, with a computer. Let's choose this guy. I'll deactivate this track. I'll now only have Bob Marley on. So let's zoom in. Let's play back. Okay, so we could already tell that this should be the start of bar one. So as we go along and we get more familiar with things, we move a little faster. We move the cursor above the region where bar one's supposed to start, hold on Command or Control and click. It sounds like I bit off a little bit there. So let's go 0 crossings. So check out where bar 2 starts. So this is very interesting. Right here. So let's click on warp. Let's play back. So this should be the start of bar 2. So I could click on the segment BPM, bring it all the way down. There we go. So again, to not make it sound crazy, I'll just set this to 73 BPMs. Set the metronome to be on. So you see it starts to kind of drift off a little bit, right? If we zoom out and we start listening to somewhere later in the song, it may drift off even more. Right, Bob Railsway in there. Let's zoom in a little bit. I will just right click here and say warp from here. Let's see if Ableton gets this right. I don't think so, but let's listen. Nope, not good. So if you want, you could actually try another one and say, okay, warp from here, start at 73 BPM. Worse. Not good. So undo that. Context menu again. Warp from here straight. Nope, not good. Right click here. Warp 73 from here basically says, okay, 73 BPM, lock it down, right? So none of these options here work. So what we have to do is do it the manual way. So I will just go down because it doesn't swing off so bad. I'll just say, okay, let's go to bar 7, right? Or that doesn't have a clear one. So let's say bar 8. Let's see. Or I could go in a little earlier and say, okay, the start of bar 3. This here, remember, this is a transient marker. If I move the cursor over it, it will show me like the shadow or a grayed out version of a warp marker, right? So if I want, I could double click on it and create a warp marker and just pull it onto bar 3. And when it pulls there, it pulls everything afterwards. Usually that would kind of straighten out most things. So let's hear. Right, so this one swung out a little bit. Now remember, this was a live recording. They didn't have Ableton back in those days, or I'm sure they didn't use a drum machine to record this or play back the drums. This will, what you call, swing and move around a little bit, right? Here's a transient marker. I could double click and create a warp marker and pull it into time. So let's play that back. Don't worry about a thing. So right here, this one goes out too early, so I could just move it into place and create a warp marker there. If you don't create a warp marker and then you shift things later down in the song, everything in the back here would shift. But if you set a warp marker here, let's say if we set one here, and I didn't have one here, and let's say if I shifted something here, it would move everything in between. Right? So it's important to make sure that you have your warp marker set. Setting a warp marker is saying, okay, you plant a post for the foundation of your house. So then we go along.
Rise up this morning.
Right. So down here, we see that it goes.
This morning.
This should probably be down here. Set a marker there. Zoom out, go down a couple bars. Let's say 17.
Singing sweet songs of melodies pure and true. Saying, this is my message to you.
So let's say if we wanted this one to move up a little bit.
This is my message to you. Singing no word.
So this go starts to speed up a little bit. So we send it back a little bit.
Singing no worry about a thing. 'Cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Singing don't worry about a thing.
Yeah, so like this one, he starts to jam a little bit here. So let's move him back.
'Cause every little thing.
And to zoom in and zoom out, I'm using the plus and the minus keys on my keyboard.
'Cause every little thing's gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun.
Right? And then even if you want to try it from here, you can say right click and say warp from here and see what happens. Sometimes it would set warp markers all in between here. Or you can say right click and warp from here straight. It would extend things a little bit. You may not want that to happen. For songs like this that were recorded way back in the day, you would not have like a set tempo that they would be playing back to. The drummer might be really good with timing, but he's gonna swing off a little bit once you don't record with a metronome. As good as you could be very close, but you will not be exactly on time because you're not a machine, you're not a computer. So things will swing out. So let's go really late down in the song.
About a thing,
Right, so things start to go really early now.
about a thing.
So like this here should probably be right here. Now you could move it before you double click and set the warp marker as well, right? So let's listen in between here and to see if everything is okay.
Smile with the rising sun. Three little birds. It's by my doorstep.
Nope. I could say, okay, I want this to go here. Right.
Gonna be alright.
And so on and so on. Whenever you have old songs to warp, yes, this is what you may have to do. Sometimes live gets it and interprets it correctly if you just say warp from here, and it might lock everything into position, especially if you have a really good start marker, starting point set. But this is what you call like the long way. It is not the hard way, it is the long way. And the hard way sometimes actually gives you even better results. All right, so no questions there so far, no problem. Let us go into let's get even more interesting now. Some people say, well, they need to learn to warp acapellas. You don't know how to warp a cappella. So let me just fold all of these at once, just by holding down the Option key on Mac and clicking on one of these fold buttons. If I want to expand them again, hold on Option. Right, so I don't need to see all of those things. I could deactivate that as well. So I want to use this Break My Heart a cappella. So I'll just bring it in. And this is Dua Lipa. So I believe I have the song here as well. All right. So this song starts right here. I will set my start point. Zoom in a little bit. Say, okay, song starts right there. I can click on warp. Check for the second bar. So again, we're moving faster because we know what we're doing now, right? So
I've always been
right. So let's mute the acapella actually, so we hear exactly what's going on with the beat. So this is the actual sound that I'm playing back here. So this here should be at the start of bar 2. So that means that it needs to speed up. There we go. 113. Okay. So I'll just say, okay, this is 113 as the global tempo. Let's play it back.
I've always been the one to say the first goodbye. Never heard before. I'm indecisive, but center of attention. You know, stayed at home. Cause I was doing better alone. But when you said hello, am I falling in love?
Right. Yeah, so warping these things, these kind of songs make you look like a boss because you know exactly where to set the start point, right? So that's the key. So the next thing now is I want to put this at the top of the acapella. So I want to bring this acapella into this to match up with this Break My Heart at the right point. We need to listen to the song. I can close this browser window just by clicking on this arrow. So I have more screen real estate to play with. I could zoom in, so I could move the cursor to the top here, which is called the beat time ruler. The cursor now turns into a magnifying glass once again. And I could zoom in just so that I could see exactly where the vocal starts inside the song. So let's play it back. I'll leave the metronome on.
I've always been.
So I've always been starts like right here. So that's like the most, that's like a signature we could lock onto because the vocal itself, it actually has a kind of a reverse suck into the vocal.
I've always been.
Right? So we're not going to take that. It's kind of hard to use that to determine where it starts. So I could just click and drag and move this into position here. And then I could zoom in even more or use my plus or arrow keys on my keyboard and zoom in. So I could now see that this here looks just like that. So I could click on the title of this clip and just use my arrows to move it into position. It's not exactly where I want it to go. You could do a couple things. You could zoom in really tight and just move this in with real fine precision there. Or let's just say if it's a little off, right? And I really don't know what's going on and I don't want to zoom in. What I could do is I could deactivate the grid that this is locked to. So remember, if I click left or right, it moves by one grid line. But I don't want it to do that. I want to make a nice precision setting here. So now I could deactivate this grid line or these grid lines or the arrangement view grid by doing one of two things. One, I can right click on this here where it says 132, which means for every bar of music that is played, there are 32 grid lines. I can right click now, there's a new context menu that comes up. And under fixed grid, I can set it to off. So now you see it says off over here. If I put it back on, I can use the keyboard shortcut to take it off, which is Command or Control 4. And now that allows me to click and move this around with nice, precise detail and say, okay, I want this to go exactly right here. And that looks pretty much on. Say, right. That's as close as I could probably get that. I have to keep remembering not to press left or right when it's so zoomed up. All right, so that looks okay. So we'll work with that. So the good thing is that we already know that the Dua Lipa song is 113 BPM. And because this is the acapella for the song, and we lined it up now, we could say that let's play it back and figure out if it's playing back at the correct tempo.
I've always been the one to say the first goodbye. Had to love and lose 100 million times. Had to get it wrong to know just what I like. Now I'm falling. Center of attention, you know you can get stayed at home. Cause I was doing better alone.
Right, we're good to go. So this is good. So now we can click on the clip and select warp. And by clicking warp, just clicking warp on any unwarped file is going to warp the sample or song or sound to the project tempo. So there we go. I could now reactivate the grid by going Command or Control 4, and now everything is now locked to the grid. So that means I could highlight that and delete it, or duplicate it, or do whatever I want with it. And then I could start making my own little remix if I wanted to, a little edit, and say, okay, this, I don't want all of this playing here. So let's say if I wanted to only have this person singing over this beat alone. So it'll go like this.
I've always been the one to say the first goodbye. Had to love and lose 100 million times. Had to get it wrong to know just what I like.
Right? So of course things kind of go out of key, but you get the idea. You could now say, okay, I could speed this up or slow it down. Or let's say if I wanted to find like a loop or something like that, a percussion loop. So let's say if I bring this in, and I could now say, okay, I want this to, let's see, loop up there. So I could highlight this. Oops. Command L to loop. And I could extend this and loop to my heart's content. Get rid of all of this. So, okay, here we go. I want to start my nice little crazy mix here. So it goes like this. Right. So this loop now has been imported at the wrong tempo. If I look at the loop, it says percussion 23. I don't know what this is. I could now say, all right, I have an idea as to what tempo this is. So I could take off the warp, solo it, and say, okay. See, right. Second one starts right there. So 1, 2, 3, it automatically warps there. So it goes right. 99. There we go. Right. So I've now set my loop. Or warp the sample, sorry. Command and L or Control L to warp. So it goes.
I've always been the one to say the first goodbye.
Right? Miguel says he's understanding so far, surprisingly. Well, that's good to hear. So let's just say if we want to pull in another loop. So remember, for short loops, we said that we wanted it to be automatically selected. So it could warp as a loop, it could be left alone. So let's just go to some other loops that I have here. That's interesting. So let's go here, let's bring it into our set. It has been warped as 140. Let's see if that's correct. So let's go.
I've always been the one to say the first goodbye. Had to love and lose 100 million.
Right, so we could kind of take out this metronome now because we know what we're dealing with. I don't like that loop, so let's just go to something else. Let's see if I want to bring this in. And remember, this is all being automatically warped because the automatic setting for if you want to automatically warp short samples has been checked on. So that's how it's warping so fast.
I've always been the one to say the first goodbye. Had to love and lose 100 million times. Had to get it wrong to know just what I like. Now I'm falling. You say my name like I have never heard before. I'm indecisive, but this time I know for sure. I hope I'm not the only one that feels it all. Are you falling? I would have stayed at home
Right. So that's the advantage of auto warping your short samples. So let's just say if I wanted to now import a sound effect, let's put FX. You don't think you all had enough of that? Right. So let's pull in this vocal. So because again, auto warp short samples is set to auto, it automatically does warp this. If I take this off, sometimes you see that the file expands because live kind of does its thing where it tries to decide if it's a certain tempo or not. So I'll just leave it as warped, but check out the flexibility that you have here now. I could zoom in and say, okay, I wanted to fit somewhere in the middle here, right? So let's hear what's going on here. So, right, break my heart. So one. So I want the first beat to be off. So it goes. It could break my heart. Oh no. Right. So this is the wrong key. I could adjust the key by setting the transpose. Oh no. Or lower anyone. Let's find something better to use. Right. I'll use this one instead. Now this is short enough it could work as is. That's cool. Or if we wanted to get even tighter now, we realize that the start and the end of the warped sample has warp markers. So warp marker here, warp marker at the end here. I don't need to use this one, but it's there already. I could now click and shift it and make it even more staccato or make it shorter. So now it sounds like this. Could break my heart. Oh no. So that might be a more desirous or desirable sound for that, because that's my taste then. For your taste, you might want something extended. So you could do that as well. Check this out. You could now click, hold, and drag this warp marker not to the end, but even further than that. Let's see all the way down here. So now this file has the potential to play really long. I can take the loop off from here because it's going to be really weird. I'm also going to change the warp mode to complex or complex pro. And I can also, if I play back, okay, check this out first of all, right? Oh, no. Okay, cool. But if I want to hear all this tail end stuff that doesn't really have anything, but I still want to hear it, I could take the end marker. I mean, if there's a start marker, there should be an end marker, right? So take the end marker, drag it all the way to the end, and here we go. So this is where you start getting creative with warping now, right? So I saw that one or two people kind of dropped off the call here. Well, they're missing out on this. So this is how you get creative with warping. Warping is not just the boring, monotonous job of saying, oh, I need to warp 10 songs. No. This is what you could do with warping as well, that you could use for your remixes, your edits. Do we have any questions so far? I'm still loving Miguel's comment though, right? Selector Keelan, nice. Carbon, you good?
No, I'm here like a fool, putting like all kinds of crazy samples behind your work, just like totally out of time because I know Zoom has the whole delay. So I have like my whole 808 here, so me and Chacha like totally putting in fills. I have like a 808, like, you know, hard sub hitting on a one drop for you right now. Cause we missing our bass line. So yeah, we like boom.
Oh, you want that? All right.
Yeah, now I just out here grooving, getting crazy.
Sub drop. So So if you all could hear that, or if you have headphones on, you should be able to hear that sound. So now this goes like this.
Falling in love with the one that could break my heart. Oh no, I was doing better alone.
So again, my preference is to make this thing nice and short. So it'll be,
Oh no,
yeah.
break my heart. Oh no, I was doing better alone.
Right. And of course, we could choose a drum loop with a serious or sicker kick than that. So let's say kick
Yeah, for sure.
loop.
I know today is not midi days, so we doing that.
No, no, no.
We doing that dembo in the background for you. That one. Yes. I'm like a slightly kick like that right now, like bro.
You want that?
I'm stupid, so I'm over here keyboarding this one out.
So let's just say that I put this one in here. And we could actually deactivate this by pressing 0. So now we have,
Break my heart. Oh no, I was doing better.
right. So this one could probably increase a little bit.
My heart. Oh no, I was doing better alone. When you said hello.
Let's use this one. This is a kind of, I don't know if this will work.
One that could break my heart. Oh no, I was doing better alone. When you said hello, I knew that was the end of it all. I should have stayed at home.
Or if we want to fill just like you want to do in the background there, we could fills up, you know.
End of it all. I should have stayed. The end of it all. I should.
So let's see that. So we go.
I should have stayed at home. 'Cause now there ain't no letting you go. And my
And we could do that with the kick as well. Copy, go. Oops. So now it's,
go. Am I falling in love with the one that could?
this one we could duplicate that. So it goes,
Am I falling in love with the?
stand this. So,
Am I falling in love with the?
or we could get little 80s with it. I go,
Am I falling in love with the one that could break my heart?
right. I'm great at that. So you see how cool it is to have the auto warp short samples feature when you're using samples and sound effects and stuff like that. Right? Let us take this to a whole other level now. Let's bring the boys from Splice. So let's see. Da, 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 da. Yeah, he might be all right. So this is a short sample as well. It was not warped because it looked as though Ableton was like, I don't know what to do with you. I could click on warp. I'll solo this and listen to what it does. Right. So there's some weird little scratch loop there. And let's play it in relation to the song.
One that could break my.
So here's a really cool trick. I wanted to only play for half of the bar. If I wanted, I could stretch this out and be like, okay, you play full bar. But no. Each one of these transient peaks here should be, let's say this should be the start of bar 2. I could tell you one time, right? So I'll just say, right. Right, there we go. So that should be it there. That should play in time.
Break my heart.
Right, if I double click on this and I set my gain up,
It could break my heart. Oh no.
right? Or, now if I'm going too fast, let me know. I could say, I want this to halve now. Right? So now that's half time and I could stretch it out if I want, or I could manually do it. So I could say, right, this is, I could set a warp marker here and stretch it out and say, okay, this is like really, really slow, but let's have it, right? I'll put this here and say, okay, I want to
Break my heart.
say, right, it'll play back fast. But if I say double,
Break my heart.
so I could have it,
Break my heart.
you could feel as though, okay, Carbon did this mix because he has somebody.
I want to
scratching fast.
object. I want to object. It took me 20 years to scratch that fast. I'm just saying.
But you could do it. That's the point.
I object to the core.
No. Right. So, I mean, we're not going to go as far as saying, okay, Ableton has replaced a Carbon-like DJ or a Cha-Cha-like DJ, but this is getting somewhere, right? Let's double it again. And we could make him scratch like real slow and just send this all the way out here. So now it goes. Right. We could actually send up the clip gain here. Say I want it to be a little louder. I could set this to play even louder as well. So let's go. And we could even speed up the second half here. So I could now set something here, move this half time, and I could now duplicate this. So now we have. Right. So that's warping, and that's how you can get creative with it. So warping should not only be viewed as a corrective tool, it should also be used as a creative tool. So like if this subdrop was too long, again, I could say, all right, I want to shorten it. So now it goes. Or shorten it even more. Like real short. Like. Oh, another thing now is that with beats mode, it does different things with warping when you speed up and shorten things. So at beats mode, it sounds like this. But if we change it to Complex Pro, check this out. You actually hear that it's kind of goes with the visual representation of what you see here. So check it out. Right. And that's how you could do that. All right. So that's that. The scratch samples. Oh, well, check this out. I mean, honestly, there are so many things that I could still do with these scratches and warp samples. I'll just show you one more. Let's see. Let's bring in a really weird guy. So let's deactivate this and fold this. I could even put it on top here. It is set to warp. Let's hear if it is in correct time. So let's say I could kind of filter this out a little bit. This is again one way that I could do this. Let's go into automation mode and say I want this to go down like that.
Infamous radio
right? And then
infamous radio EQ.
What's that?
That's the infamous radio equalizer.
So now the vocal by itself would sound like this. Right, great. If I take the solo off now. Right? Actually, yes. But I only want to use this piece of it. That's it. So I could now say that I want this. Oh, here's another thing. We could right click on this and say crop clip. So now this sample is just this. I could double click and say, okay, I want to have this or double it. And now it speeds up. But it set the tempo to a higher number, which means at a lower tempo, it'll play back slower. So I could now say that I want this to go here and play back. And then I could loop that now, or I could just duplicate it. So it's not as clean as you probably would have wanted it. I could now say, all right, I want this to go like here, but I want to take this part and shrink it a little bit, take this part and set it still to play right here, right? So this will now go, right? Or shrink this even more and go and shorten this sound itself. Right? Now you could automate this and take off this sound and whatever. I could say, I don't want to hear that sound. I could click on these two clips and go Command G and consolidate them into one. And I'm still getting this weird sound because it had all of that in it, right? So let's see. I could still take it off, or we could even make this part of the scratch itself. So check this out. See, right, that goes there. I could shrink you all the way inside here and take you and put you all the way over here. So it goes like this. Right? So all of those things, that's getting creative with warping. All right, so take the solo off now. I want to highlight this region, so it goes. And that's how you can get creative with this. So now you're no longer thinking that, okay, I am limited by the resources that I have. I don't have all these scratch samples or sound effects that I need to use. Yes, now you do. Hopefully your mind has been open to know, okay, this is how I could, repurpose my audio. And no longer do I need to have, you don't even need like a subdrum. Let's say, check this out. I could even take this, copy it, create a new track, put it there, and I can say, okay, I want to crop this sample, which means that you cut everything out, only use what is inside the highlighted area, create a new warp marker, and extend this all the way down here. And if I solo that, we now have, right? But in Beats mode, it doesn't sound so good. So you have to use like Complex or Complex Pro. So, right? It starts to get a little digitally. Fine. Go to tones. Ooh, real stuttery. Texture. Wavy. Repitch. A whole other thing, right? Now in Beats mode, you could actually say, okay, I only wanted to play forward because Beats mode automatically is set to play forward and backward if it's playing something slower than its original tempo. That's to fill up the space, but still to preserve the transients. Or it just keeps playing forward. This way it will only play once. Right? All right. One more thing I wanted to show you all when it comes to not necessarily warping, but it has to deal with the warp mode. Let's say if I have a keys loop, let's see. Yeah, this is good. All right. So again, I'm looking for the drop files and devices here. I'll just put this in here. If I listen to this in solo, it's warped correctly because I could actually tell by looking at the waveform, or I could have it and say, right. So this is cool as it is, but check this out. In beats mode, I want to preserve transients. I click on the small drop down. I set this to play forward only and stop. And I'm going to reduce this 100% value here.
Oh no, I was doing better alone. But when you said hello, I knew that was the end of it all. I should have stayed at home. 'Cause now that
So now I could transient shape my sound. Here's another way that you could do it. In preserve, I could say I wanted to preserve every eighth note. Check this out.
oh no, I was doing better alone. But when you said hello, I knew that was the end of it all. I should have stayed at home. 'Cause now there ain't no letting you go. Am I falling in love? I knew there was the oh no, I was doing better alone. But when you said hello,
So in the warp field under beats, you have the potential to actually create melodic percussion. So that's another cool way that you could get nice and creative using warp modes and also using the beats mode in Ableton Live. Now, I guess we kind of come up to time now, but there are so many ways, other techniques that we could use warping to really fill out in our production or even a live performance. But these are some of the main ways that people either like to see or aren't really sure about. But I made sure and I try to go nice and deep with the main area, which is how to warp just like a regular loop or song and how to approach it. So hopefully it's not as intimidating as it probably seemed before. And you'll be able to check out and understand how to warp any type of audio now and also get creative with it. Again, these are some cool ways that you could use it. Of course, there are, as I mentioned, many other ways that you could warp. These are some of the ways that you could do it, right? You could also warp just looking at the beat time ruler here. So let's just use this as the last one. Let's pull a song in, hopefully something that starts at the start.
Yeah.
Banana. All right, let's bring in banana. Okay. So let's see. Oh, no, this has a space. So let's see. Yeah, lento. Let's go a little lento. If I, first of all, set a proper start marker here, it will also match up inside the arrangement view. So, so this should be the start of bar 2 here. So from here, I could even use the global tempo and go down. Just keep going down. And there we go. And if I put the metronome on,
1, 2, 3.
right, so it's almost on time. So let's go down one more.
1, 2, 3. No quiero separarme de ti, ni siquiera un momento.
That is also another quick way to warp. Again, another approach, but you could also do it fast like that. Doing it from the sample editor is cool, but this is also another way. Once you make sure you find a start marker, the process would be find a proper start marker, make sure you set it all the way up to bar 1, beat 1, and then adjust the tempo from the global tempo, and then make sure everything is lined up to the grid. Of course, I had set mine to 89, but then I realized from the start of bar 3, it wasn't on. So I just send it down 1 and everything just snapped. So if I just say click here, it's on point. If I click here, if I click here, it's all on. So those are all of your methods of warping that we could get into here so far. There are one or two other methods, but I don't think we really have the time to cover all of that here. If you want to get more information and check out all of those things, you could also check out one of my private sessions. And as I said, private sessions are private. So it's just one-on-one. It's not like a group thing where you have to compete with other people who might slow you down and be asking a set of questions. Say, so how is this? And da, da, da. Or somebody who might be too fast or whatever. Private sessions are private sessions, just like you do the regular private sessions with Groove. Same thing with me. You could book private sessions, get into all of this even deeper, as well as doing DJ edits, remixes, production. That really could get wild. And last but not least, I probably want to show you all one project that I came up with in a class this week with a student. And it had to deal with warping the vocal. So the song here is this.
Baby, when the bright lights start to fade, fire up your lights.
So that's the actual song, right?
You make me feel.
Okay, great. So I'll take the solo off, and what I had was access to the acapella. So I have.
Baby, when the bright lights start to fade, fire up your lighter.
Here's one of the DIY acapellas that there are so many of out there. So I could just expand these. Same thing that I did, that I showed you all. I just lined up the vocal with the actual song itself. And that was it. And this is, I actually created this in a session this week that I had with a student.
Baby, when the bright lights start to fade, fire up your lighter, float on with the waves. You make me feel like, you make me feel like, you make me feel.
Right. So all of that was done in one session with a student this week, just by getting the acapella, warping it, matching it up with the original, actually using a whole heap of samples, creating new samples, changing keys of notes, and going through the whole editing process. So yes, all of this is possible, and this is stuff that we cover in detail in private live sessions with yours truly. So if you're interested in that, you could feel free to sign up. All of these sessions for the rest of the year are booked up, so you could get a session in from next year. So hope to see some of you all in. And if you don't need to take any of these sessions, you could always tell your friends, your family. I even teach kids as well, because sometimes kids get this stuff better than us and even faster. So all you need is a copy of Ableton Live, which is free for 3 months still on their website. Not sure how long they're going to do that anymore. Get a copy of it, play around with the warping. When you realize you hit that brick wall, check me. I could always do a session. You don't need to do like 10 sessions or 19 sessions. You could start with one and go along as you so desire. So hopefully I'll be able to see you all in a session. And still, if you already know how to use Ableton a little bit, or you're trying around and stuff like that, and you want me to help you with a session or with a remix or a mix or edit or something like that, feel free to send me your stuff and I will help you out. I could actually show you what to do in your sessions. I could add stuff to it. And it'll be like a way of collaborating on something. But the whole point is to make sure that you get a good product out. It's fine for you if you just want to play and stay by yourself and DJ and edit and stuff. But when you collaborate with other people, you're able to see things that you may not be able to see before. You wouldn't have detected errors or figure out something, or just plain and simple, just get a better product out. And when people hear product, they'll be like, okay, I want to hear some more from this person or you or this guy or that girl. So the thing is about improving yourself, constantly evolving and improving. And as usual, we always here to help, myself and the other guys on the team. That's what we're here to do, to make things get better and improve the level and standard. So I'm also here interested in helping you out with your projects and stuff like that. So would love to hear from everybody.
Yes,
That's it from my
good.
end.
This was good, Richard. Thank you again on behalf of all of the Groove Theory members, administrators, and support teams. Really, enough thanks for being able to enlighten the entire community. I mean, and Caribbean wide, to be fair. This stuff is really cool. It's really dope. Hopefully, I could start to hear Hassani and Miguel and them boys dropping some stuff that going to be like super fresh. So that's going to be great. Yeah, guys, gals, if I still have a few, Richard is available for his private one-on-ones. I would strongly suggest, if this is an arena of music, musicality, even DJing as an extension that you're into and you want to get into, reach out to him and get your creative juices flowing and get more comfortable. Because after comfort comes creativity. Richard, again, thank you. Thanks to everybody for attending. You all made it to the end. That's really dope. Before I close, I want to make sure we don't have any questions here. Just scrolling through the chat. Super.
Yeah. Actually, I want to hail out, let's say Vikash. That's one of my past students. What's up, buddy?
Oh, Vikash.
Also, Kyle Phillips from Bajan Republic. I actually trained him and the other guys from Precision Productions. So big up to Kyle.
Don't know.
Thanks for checking it out. And yeah, look, Chacha is now connecting.
Connecting, yeah, well, he gets to do that. He's that guy. So keep it locked, people, to all the social media channels. Chacha gonna keep them things going. As I said, we have the WhatsApp group. Tell a friend if you know somebody who is interested and they just want to get their feet wet in a similar way into DJing. That's exactly what DJ 01 is there for. We get people started from zero to being able to literally create their own mix as the end result. DJ 02 for those who've been doing it already and want to take it up a notch. And for those who are interested in the whole Red Bull scheme and interested in getting themselves to battle mode, competition mode, or really more into the turntable as an instrument and some of those kinds of things, that's what TT101 is. Oh, Richard, before we sign off, I know Chacha wants to get a screenshot in the gallery view. So could you kill your screen real quick? This is a housekeeping thing. Kill your share screen real quick so that I know Chacha wanted that for a minute. I tell him WhatsApp you, but like you forget. So, yeah.
Okay.
Boom.
There we go.
Hey, shout out Oxmighty. Now I can see everybody. Gizzy, I have your t-shirt next to my bedhead. I'm starting to study if I should wash can thing, but I can't disrespect Chacha, hard work, and Jizzy. So, Gizzy, get it together. Get it together now, please and thanks. Like next time you win a jersey, you're gonna automatically forfeit, right? Don't know. Oxmighty, shout out. Glad to know you make it back home. I know how this COVID and borders thing was, so glad to see you. And everybody else, yo. Hey, for sure. Okay, why? Oh, because I don't have on my glasses.
Hey, Dominic.
Oh, no. Shout out Mr. Williams. Dominic Williams. Dr. Dominic. Listen, it's funny, right? People ask me all the time, Richard, what do I miss most about radio? What I miss most about radio, other than scratching in a cool, quiet room, because that's what I do all day long, is the team, the family, the guys, Marcus, Dominic, and X-Beast, and, Trev. I saw Trev this morning, and this one and that one, and the camaraderie of having that collective. So good to see you, Dominic. Good to know that you're, even as busy as you are, you get to participate and contribute to this bigger movement. Again, everybody, thanks. You don't have to go home, but including Chacha, you all have to get the hell on up out of here.
Actually, there was a thing that I saw that you, I saw that you handled it in the chat. It was talking about, let's see.
Was that the Logic versus Ableton thing?
No, a song with an instrumental break.
Right, yeah.
Make it a clip and crop. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that for everybody broadly, like, yes, Richard is going to have a ton of things in his Ableton that are non-stuck. Because I think somebody was asking if some of these things were stuck.
No.
Ableton is not gonna give you a ton of royalties.
Actually, they do,
Well,
but
yes,
I mean, I
okay.
just kind of embellish it with like a whole heap of splice sounds and
Yes.
other different sounds because they actually have good sounds. And what is important, remember,
High quality.
if somebody's hearing what you are editing in live or any other DAW,
Mhm.
nobody cares if it's from an expensive pack or not. The
Yep.
point is that it has to sound really good. You could
Orally, it has to be
sample you hitting a pot or a pan or you're
Mhm.
changing a tire or something, and that could have some really cool transients in it
Mhm.
that you could use to create either a melodic instrument, it could be
Mhm.
part of a percussion pack that you could create. All of these things are possible.
Correct.
So it's important to just have really good sounds, and wherever that comes from, you could sample. You don't even need sample packs. You could sample stuff from songs that you already have.
Yep.
And say, okay, I like a kick drum from here. I like
Mhm.
this pluck shot from here. I like this reverb tail of this
And we
sound
keep
or
it
this
all white
vocal here.
label. We make no money. We keep it white label. I'm not paying you them royalties, Chacha. I'm gonna just keep it white label. But yeah, I mean, for sure. It's funny because while we're sitting here, I working like two things in Ableton right now because it's just to express myself. And I don't like the snare that I have. And like Chacha was like, I don't like the snare. He's like, you could transpose. I like, I don't want to transpose it. I don't like the texture of the snare. So like, you know what? I'm gonna sit down today and listen to some snares. And I remember like about 10 years ago, my buddy gave me a Timbaland sample pack that they were using in Bad Boy Records. So I just found it and pulled it in, and I'm like, all right, as soon as it's done, I'm gonna try out some of them Timbaland snares and hear how it sounds on. But yeah, I mean, really, part and parcel of that whole conversation, Miguel, is understanding that you need to start creating your own oral space. So start saving some of your sample packs, start creating some crop clips. Do some warp things and throw it over in your sample library as things that you've marked and held on to. Because at some point, a year from now, 3 years from now, you're gonna be like, yo, I had a wicked bass line I had back in the days for blah, blah, blah. Let me see if I find it. You know what I mean? So you don't need to just rely on buying a ton of sample pack loops and whatnot. You can
Now, just as I demonstrated, sorry to cut you off, Carl, but just like as I demonstrated, if you have a snare that's really, really long, as I showed, you could just warp it, send it down, make it short, and put a filter on it so you cut all the brightness off and kind of make it sound almost like a thumb.
Yeah, no, I actually did end up shortening one of the Timberland snares. So, but again, this is the Ableton conundrum. You could do this so many ways, right? You could find another snare. You could go listen to some dancehall listened to 10 years ago that nobody ain't playing, and you hear a snare in there that fat, and it has that kind of texture you want in the space you want, and you're like, you know what, let me just borrow this, Miguel. So you throw it in Ableton, you thing it down, and you right click on it, you crop it, and then you save it as one of your favorites as a snare. Like you have a ton of options to really get the space and the sounds you want. And it's not necessarily that, oh God, Richard, I have so many samples and sounds and blah, blah, blah. I can't. Just as he said, equalizer and effects alone for any single sound in Ableton makes everything sound different. And then when you add transposition to that, where things could go up or down in terms of tone, it's kind of unlimited. So what I've been trying to do, and hopefully Richard co-signs this because I was saying this to Chacha last week or week before, is that I'm not trying to get too lost in running around looking for samples. I want to just take the stock things I could get as close to it as possible and create in terms of structure. And then between effects and EQs and whatnot, I could try to tune the sound of the particular instrument or the hi-hat. I want it to be brighter. I want it to be whatever is the case to get to where I want to go. Because I found myself personally, Richard, spending far too much time looking for effect, looking for a sample, looking for a
Okay, let's try this one technique, right?
I'm not working.
Everything beside the kick drum, probably take it and transpose it minus 12 semitones. Everything.
Everything. All right.
Your snares, your hi-hats, your percussions are going to sound so gritty and nasty. You'll be like, listen, I am wasting my time.
Looking for samples and sounds.
Right? Just transpose everything down by minus 12 or even lower, and you will see everything will sound gritty, nasty, like you recorded straight from a record. It sounds just like that. Just try that. So that's a tip there. So one more tip since I saw that he stepped away is that it's important for you to have your own versions of songs, because anybody, be it either on radio or personally, could have the same songs that you would have, or you would have the same songs as they would have. But it's really important for DJs to really separate themselves from the pack, or at least you don't even need to separate, you just need to sound unique. And to sound unique, if you have your own versions of the same songs and you know how to edit and remix and create your own beats and stuff like that, that is what sets you apart. So that's what I help all my students with in our sessions together. So hopefully some of you all would be able to check me out for some of that. If you're all good where you are as well, you could also share your projects with me, as I mentioned. And yeah, we could actually work on something together, or I could clean up something or help you with something. That's no problem. That's cool. That'll be like a diagnostic collab session.
All
Yeah,
right.
Chach.
Me?
What's up, Chach?
I cool. So thank you for your time once again. Thank you for a great session. And guys, look out for the next online session from us. Uh, to the DJs that are not in the WhatsApp group, please reach out to me so that I could add you so that you could remain in the loop with what is going on at Groove Theory. So thanks again. Have an awesome day. All right. Any questions? Seeing one more question, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
Mastering aspect of Ableton. You can answer that.
Mastering is, yeah, somebody asked me that this week. Mastering is mainly two things, EQ and limiting. Limiting because you want stuff to sound loud but not burst through the glass. And EQ because it's very fine EQ things that you have to do, because if you have an end result and you just have to master something, you just make very, very precise cuts and boosts right where you need to. So that's mainly what mastering deals with. Now, the art of mastering is a whole other thing. You could do like a months long course on mastering to get it proper. But basically, mastering of anything deals with EQ and limiting, usually in that order. So you can EQ something and then you could limit it. So you could set it how loud or how soft or quiet or whatever. So again, mastering is mainly EQ, sometimes more than one, sometimes two or three. And you have some limiting inside there, sometimes even compression. But again, it's not a broad brush for everything. You need to be able to understand that you could master folk music differently from soca music, and you could master soca music differently from reggae music, right? So soca music will have a lot of mids and bass and stuff like that, and loud vocals in your face. And then reggae might be more concentrating on the sweetness. It will focus on a different frequency of the bass, not the kick part of the bass, more the bass line bass. And then you'd focus on the vocal and the guitar. So it all depends on what type of sound that you're using to master. And that will determine what you need to use and how you need to use it. But mastering is mainly very, very intricate, detailed choices of boosting or cutting frequencies and limiting. But it could also deal with other things. Hope that explains the question, Hassani. Hope that's cool.
All right. So, yes, he seems to.
I actually cover some of these things in sessions. So if you want to do that alone, we could do that. Or if you want to go through editing and and the whole belly of Ableton, we could do that as well. So I'm happy to report that there are people who have already signed up for classes next year. So that's very cool.
Yes, sign up for a class. Up your game. All right. So, everyone have a good day. Look out for more notifications and workshops